All right, so today we're diving into something I think we can all relate to, boundaries.
Oh, yeah,
They can be tough, right?
absolutely. And we're going to continue our series looking at this through the humble self-concept method
Okay, cool.
to try to get a better understanding of why boundaries are so difficult for so many of us.
So is it really just as simple as people just having a hard time saying no?
It's interesting because we find that very often it's not just about saying no.
Right.
It really goes deeper than that.
Okay.
It's about self-perception
Okay.
and how we look for validation from other people.
So like if you know someone or maybe you are someone who just can't say no to save your life,
Yeah.
where does that come from?
Well, think about it this way. Sometimes, for some people, saying no feels like they're going to be rejected
Oh,
or that they're disappointing somebody.
yeah.
And that feeling can be so overwhelming and so strong that they overextend themselves, they overcommit,
Right.
and ultimately they end up feeling really resentful and burned out.
Yeah, or even just like taken advantage of.
Exactly.
It's like they're putting everyone else's needs before their own.
Yeah.
So where does that fear of like being rejected come from?
Well, it could come from a lot of different things.
Okay.
Maybe it's the way they were brought up. Maybe they were always told to put other people's needs first.
Yeah.
Maybe they had some experiences in the past where their boundaries were totally ignored and now they feel powerless.
Right. So they've just kind of learned like, okay, well, I just need to do whatever everyone else wants me to do.
Exactly. The self-validation dynamics framework actually calls this a validation scarcity mindset.
Okay. Validation scarcity mindset.
Yeah,
I've never heard of that.
it's pretty intense.
Okay.
So just imagine you need approval from other people constantly to feel good about yourself.
Ooh, yeah.
And so it's almost like you have this bucket of self-worth
Okay.
and it's constantly leaking and you're desperately trying to fill it up with compliments and validation from others.
So it's like you're always chasing after this external validation just to feel good about yourself.
Exactly. And that's exactly where the humble self-concept method comes in.
Okay.
Instead of constantly seeking validation from others,
Right.
it encourages you to find it within yourself.
Oh, okay.
So to find it from somewhere more stable, more enduring.
So it's almost like you're giving yourself
Yeah.
that validation rather than seeking it from the outside.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing your inherent worth.
Okay.
Not because of what you do or what other people think of you,
Right.
but just because you exist.
I love that. So how does that play out when we're talking about setting boundaries?
Well, so let's think about expressing boundaries as an example.
Okay.
If you are constantly worried about people-pleasing,
Right.
you might have trouble actually articulating what you need,
Oh, yeah.
let alone enforcing those needs.
Right.
But when you have that solid sense of self-worth,
Okay.
you're not as afraid to voice your needs, even if it means disagreeing or saying no.
So it's like having that internal compass
Exactly.
and it guides you even when things around you feel really chaotic and demanding.
Exactly. And that internal compass,
Okay.
that unshakable sense of self-worth, is really at the heart of this humble self-concept method.
Okay.
And it's the foundation
Right.
for being able to set boundaries, express them, enforce them, and maintain them.
So we're going deeper than just, setting a boundary.
Yes.
We're talking about how to maintain it,
Yeah.
how to enforce it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm starting to see how they all connect now.
Yeah.
So how does this actually help people overcome those really deep fears and insecurities that might be preventing them from setting boundaries in the first place?
Well, the method walks you through a series of steps.
Okay.
And each step is designed to cultivate that inner strength and self-acceptance
Okay.
that makes setting boundaries feel less scary.
I like that.
So the first step is all about recognizing where you're at.
Okay.
It's called assessment and disarmament.
Assessment and disarmament.
Yes.
That sounds kind of intense.
Yeah, it's less about battling external forces, though, and more about understanding what's going on inside of you.
Okay.
So in this step, you use 3 questions to figure out if you have more of a pride-centered or shame-centered self-concept.
Okay. So pride-centered versus shame-centered.
Right.
What's the difference?
Okay, so someone with a pride-centered self-concept often relies on feeling superior to others.
Okay.
They might need to prove their worth through achievements
Okay.
and really need to maintain a sense of control.
Got it.
Now, on the other hand, someone with a shame-centered self-concept,
Okay.
they tend to focus on their internal flaws, and they have this fear that they're not good enough.
Okay. So how do those different self-concepts tie into boundaries?
Well, someone with a pride-centered self-concept
Yeah.
might actually resist boundaries
Oh.
because they see it as a sign of weakness.
Oh, wow.
They might push themselves too hard.
Right.
They might be afraid to admit that they need help or that they have limitations.
It's like they always have to be perfect and in control.
Ex-
So then it's hard for them to admit that they need to set a boundary to protect themselves.
Exactly.
Okay, what about shame-centered?
Someone with that might think that they don't even deserve boundaries.
No.
They might constantly apologize for their needs or feel guilty when they say no.
Oh, so it's like this belief that their needs aren't important,
Yes.
that they're not worthy of setting limits.
Exactly. And this can lead them to constantly overextend themselves and feel resentful and burned out.
Yeah, I see that. So just understanding these different self-concepts can help explain why boundaries can be so difficult.
Right.
So once you've kind of figured out where you are,
Yay.
pride-centered or shame-centered,
Exactly.
what's next?
That's where the magic happens.
Okay.
And it's called the target humble self-concept.
Okay. I am very intrigued. Tell me more.
It's basically a powerful statement that affirms your inherent worth,
Okay.
regardless of your achievements or your flaws.
I like that.
It's about recognizing that you are worthy just because you exist, not because of what you do or what other people think. So
Right.
it's like rewiring your brain
Yeah.
to see yourself in a whole new way
Right.
based on this inherent worth rather than external validation.
So you're giving yourself permission to be imperfect.
Exactly.
You can make mistakes.
Right.
You're still worthy of love and respect.
Exactly. And this shift in thinking can be so freeing,
Okay.
especially when it comes to boundaries.
Right.
Because when you believe in your inherent worth, you're not as afraid of disappointing people or being rejected.
Right.
You can actually stand up for your needs
Yeah.
with more confidence.
So this method is giving you that foundation of strength
Exact.
to face those challenges.
Yeah. And we're going to dive deeper into how this works when we come back
Okay. Sounds good.
after a quick break.
I'm excited to hear more about this.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So this target humble self-concept,
Yes.
it sounds like a game changer, but I imagine it takes some work to really internalize that new way of thinking.
You're right. It's not just repeating a phrase and expecting things to magically change.
Right.
It really is a framework for rewiring those deep beliefs and patterns.
So how does it do that?
So once you've figured out your starting point, pride-centered or shame-centered, you move on to step 2,
Okay.
which, as we mentioned, is about embracing that target humble self-concept.
Can you refresh my memory on what that statement is?
Absolutely. It goes like this. I may fail at anything and may fail to notice I am failing, but I am the type of person who imperfectly tries to be what they currently consider a good person.
Yeah.
For that, what I am has worth, whether I am failing or not, and I can always be proud of my imperfect attempt, including when limitations out of my conscious control sabotage it. That absolute self-worth and self-esteem justify all possible self-compassion, such as self-forgiveness, patience, desiring and attempting to seek changes in my life, and establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries against harm others. Or I might try to cause myself, including attempts to invalidate this maximally humble self-concept as a way of being made to feel shame, guilt, or embarrassment for their sake, more than I intend to use these feelings to help me grow.
Okay, wow. That is a mouthful, but I'm starting to get it.
Yeah, it's about shifting the focus from external validation to internal validation.
Right.
So instead of seeking approval from other people, you're affirming your worth based on just being human.
You're giving yourself permission to be perfectly imperfect,
Exactly.
to make mistakes.
Right.
You're still worthy.
And that can be so liberating when it comes to boundaries.
Okay.
Because when you believe in your inherent worth, you're not so afraid of rejection or disappointing other people.
So you're building this internal foundation of strength
Exactly.
to handle those boundary challenges.
And that brings us to step 3, which is reframing memories and beliefs.
Okay, so that's about letting go of the guilt from past boundary violations.
Exactly. Instead of blaming yourself for not having the tools or awareness to set those boundaries back then,
Right,
you look back with compassion and understanding.
like giving your past self a hug.
Yeah, and by reframing those memories, you're letting go of some of that baggage
So you can move forward with a clean slate.
and a stronger sense of self.
Okay, I see that.
Yeah.
And with each step, you're building on that foundation,
Right.
making it easier to set boundaries, enforce them, and maintain them. Okay, so we're addressing the deeper layers here.
Yes.
It's not just about saying no.
It's about changing your whole relationship with yourself.
Yeah, and that can really empower you to show up in your relationships
Absolutely.
with more authenticity and confidence.
Yeah.
So we've covered assessment and disarmament, embracing the target humble self-concept, reframing memories and beliefs.
Right.
What's next?
Step 4 is called learning to enjoy pride.
Enjoy pride. Doesn't that seem counterintuitive?
It might sound that way, but it's not about becoming arrogant.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that pride itself isn't a bad thing.
Okay.
It's the attachment to pride that can be problematic.
Right, so it's about redirecting it.
Exactly.
Okay.
This step encourages you to acknowledge and savor those moments when you feel proud of yourself.
Okay.
But then instead of clinging to that pride, you gently redirect it back to that core principle of your inherent worth.
So, yeah, I'm proud of this accomplishment, but my worth isn't based solely on this.
Exactly.
I'm valuable regardless.
And that is crucial for boundary setting, because when you know that you're worthy no matter what, you're not so afraid of making mistakes or disappointing people.
Right.
So you can set boundaries with more confidence because you know your worth isn't on the line.
Okay, it's like this method is giving you a safety net
Mm.
to take risks and assert yourself.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So steps 5, 6, and 7.
Okay.
Build on that and help you apply it to your daily life
Okay.
when boundaries are being tested.
All right, so what's step 5?
Step 5 is called framing all new experiences and beliefs derived from them so they are compatible with the target self-concept.
So you're taking the humble self-concept and applying it to everything.
Yes.
Okay.
It's about reminding yourself of your inherent worth,
All right.
no matter what challenges or successes you're facing.
So it makes it easier to maintain those boundaries.
Right.
You're less swayed by pressure or opinions.
Exactly, because you're anchored to that truth.
Okay, you're building that resilience
Exactly.
to help you get through tough times,
And that resilience helps you enforce your boundaries,
even when it's hard.
even when people push back.
So what about those times when we still feel guilty or afraid when we're setting a boundary?
That's where step 6 comes in.
Okay.
Using those internal coping mechanisms
Okay.
to navigate those emotions.
So applying those self-compassion skills to deal with the discomfort.
Exactly. You're recognizing those feelings are natural,
Okay.
but they don't have to control you.
So you can acknowledge them,
Yes.
but still act in accordance with your boundary.
It's about having the emotional intelligence to manage those difficult feelings and still stand up for yourself.
I love that each step builds on the one before,
Yes.
creating this capacity for self-awareness and self-compassion.
And the ability to set healthy boundaries.
This is so insightful.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about step 7.
Step 7 is about extending that compassion to others.
So recognizing that everyone deserves compassion and respect.
Exactly. It's acknowledging that just like you, everyone else is on their own journey.
So by approaching others with compassion,
Yes.
you can create healthier relationships.
It's about creating a more compassionate world.
That's beautiful.
And that's what makes this method so powerful.
It's not just about self-improvement.
Right.
It's about creating a more harmonious world. This has been incredible.
Yes, it has.
But before we wrap up, I want to hear more about how this applies to real-life situations.
Absolutely. Let's dive into some examples.
Okay, so we've explored this method and how it helps us understand those boundaries.
Right.
Now I want to see how it works in real life.
Absolutely.
What's like a common boundary challenge people face?
Okay, so let's say you have a friend who's always asking for favors,
Yeah.
but never really returns them.
Oh, yeah, we all know that person.
We might feel obligated to say yes.
Like you have to help.
even if it really drains your time and energy.
Yeah.
So this is where the humble self-concept can really come in handy.
Okay, so how would you approach this situation using the method?
Well, first remember that your worth includes the right to prioritize your needs.
Right.
So you can say no without feeling guilty.
You're giving yourself permission to honor your limits.
Exactly.
That your time and energy are valuable.
And that shift makes it so much easier to set boundaries.
So instead of saying yes automatically,
Right.
you can actually think about it.
Take a moment. Do I have the capacity to do this right now?
And if you don't,
You can say no politely
okay.
without feeling like you're letting them down.
But what if they get upset?
That's where step 6 comes in.
Okay.
Remember those coping mechanisms?
Right.
You can acknowledge their feelings,
Right.
but don't let them control your decision.
So you're validating their feelings, but not compromising your own needs.
Exactly. It's like you can be kind, but firm.
I like that.
And when you're firm with that boundary,
Okay.
you're not only honoring yourself,
Right.
but it's an opportunity for them to grow too.
So we're shifting from boundaries being mean to being healthy
Exactly.
and necessary for any relationship.
And that shift benefits both of you.
Okay.
Because when you both feel respected,
Right.
there's that foundation for trust.
Right. This is really eye-opening.
I think so.
It can empower people to have healthier boundaries.
Yeah.
Not just personally, but professionally too.
Whether it's a demanding boss or just setting limits on work hours.
This method can help.
Absolutely.
It's like taking back our power.
And that's what's so great about this method.
It's not about being selfish.
Right.
It's about honoring yourself.
And protecting your well-being.
So for our listeners who are ready for this journey,
Yeah.
what's the first step?
Start by reflecting on your own experiences.
Okay.
Where have you struggled with boundaries?
What fears are holding you back?
And how can this method help you?
That's a great start.
It is.
And remember, listeners, this is a journey,
It is.
not a destination.
Be patient with yourself.
Practice self-compassion.
And you can create a life you love.
This has been so inspiring.
It has been.
I hope our listeners feel empowered to create healthier boundaries
Me too.
and live a more fulfilling life.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep diving deep.